the heart of New York City, where skyscrapers pierce the heavens and shadows stretch long beneath their might, power is the currency that rules all. A world of opulence and ambition, where the elite thrive, often untouched by the struggles of those below. But beneath the dazzling lights of Manhattan lies a truth often ignored. Even the most unshakable facades can crumble under the weight of unexpected humanity. This story begins not with grandeur, but with a challenge, a dangerous game of ego disguised as a friendly wager. It's a tale of redemption and betrayal, of love born from deception, and the courage to change in a world that resists it. In this city of excess and ambition, the most valuable treasure isn't wealth or status. It's something far more elusive: the human heart. The night shimmered with elegance as the doors of the St. Clair Ballroom opened to Manhattan's elite. Crystal chandeliers bathed the room in golden light, their brilliance reflected in polished marble floors and the expensive champagne bubbling in delicate flutes. The annual Winter Gala, hosted under the guise of philanthropy, served as a stage for New York's wealthiest to flaunt their power, a playground for billionaires who didn't need reasons to celebrate other than their own success. Nathaniel Cross stepped into the ballroom like he owned it, because in many ways he did. His tailored tuxedo clung to his tall frame with perfection, every stitch screaming bespoke craftsmanship. His presence demanded attention, and as he moved through the crowd, heads turned, murmurs following like an invisible tide. Nathaniel wasn't here for the auction, the speeches, or even the cause the event purported to support. The gala was just another obligation, a box to tick off in his meticulously scheduled life. He preferred the high-stakes boardrooms of his skyscraper empire to the suffocating pleasantries of a socialite gathering. Yet, his arrival was inevitable. Appearances mattered, and Nathaniel always played to win. Across the room, Liam Warner leaned against the bar, his smirk dripping with mischief. His childhood friend and now fiercest rival, Liam had built his own empire, a testament to ambition fueled by years of competition with Nathaniel. Tonight, though, Liam wasn't here for business. He had a proposition, a game he knew Nathaniel wouldn't refuse. "Nathaniel," Liam called, his voice smooth as silk. "You're late, as always." Nathaniel approached with measured confidence, a glass of scotch appearing in his hand, as if summoned. "Liam," he replied, "still clinging to these soirees. I expected better." "Oh, I'm not here for the gala," Liam retorted. "I'm here for the entertainment." Nathaniel raised an eyebrow, sipping his drink. "And what, pray tell, is entertaining you tonight?" Liam gestured toward the far side of the ballroom. There, among the glittering gowns and tailored suits, stood a woman who didn't quite belong. She wore a simple navy dress that flattered her figure without the ostentation of wealth. Her chestnut hair framed a face that was striking not for its beauty, but for its warmth and sincerity. She was deep in conversation with an elderly couple, her laughter ringing genuine amidst the hollow chuckles surrounding her. "Ah, that," Liam said, tilting his glass toward the woman, "is Emily Harper." Nathaniel studied her, intrigued despite himself. "And why should I care?" "She's different," Liam said, with a glint of challenge in his eyes. "A school teacher, runs a nonprofit for underprivileged kids, genuine, hardworking, and completely immune to the charms of men like us." Nathaniel's lips curled into a smirk. "Immune? Is that a dare?" Liam chuckled. "Not just a dare, a bet. Win her over in 6 months. Show me that even the purest heart can be bought." Nathaniel's smirk deepened. "And if I win?" "I'll step down," Liam said, leaning in. "From the council seat you've been eyeing. No resistance, full backing for you." Nathaniel's eyes gleamed. The council seat meant leverage, influence, another step toward untouchable power. But he also saw the trap. Liam wasn't just baiting him. He was setting the stage for humiliation. "And if I lose?" Nathaniel asked, voice laced with sarcasm. "You'll donate $5 million to Emily's nonprofit," Liam said smoothly, "and admit, publicly, that the mighty Nathaniel Cross met his match." Nathaniel's laugh was low, confident. "Easy money. Consider it done." As they shook hands, Emily Harper caught Nathaniel's gaze from across the room. Her eyes met his for a fleeting moment before she turned back to her conversation, oblivious to the wager that had just turned her life into a battlefield of egos. Nathaniel's confidence remained unwavering, but as he observed her effortless grace, a strange sensation stirred within him. Curiosity. For the first time in years, he found himself wondering not how to win, but why he even wanted to. The bet was set, the stakes high. But as Nathaniel would soon discover, some games can't be won without losing everything first. The city's rhythm began to slow as the night deepened. But for Emily Harper, it was just another reminder of how different her world was from those who reveled in Manhattan's high society. She exited the gala with her heels clicking softly against the marble steps, a modest navy coat draped over her shoulders. The air was crisp, the city lights sparkling like scattered diamonds against the velvet sky. Behind her, the echoes of laughter and clinking glasses faded, replaced by the hum of passing taxis and murmured conversations from pedestrians. Emily glanced at the time on her phone. The gala had been productive, at least in her terms. While others flaunted wealth and influence, she'd worked her way through the crowd, collecting small promises of donations and tentative interest in her nonprofit. It wasn't glamorous, but it was necessary. From his vantage point near the valet, Nathaniel Cross watched her. Emily Harper was unlike anyone he'd encountered in years. Her exit wasn't marked by grand goodbyes or entourages. She stepped into the night alone, exuding a quiet confidence that fascinated him. This was the woman who, according to Liam, was immune to the charms of men like him. A smile tugged at the corner of his lips, a challenge. "Sir, your car is ready," the valet interrupted. Nathaniel waved him off, his attention fixed on Emily. He didn't need the car just yet. Adjusting his tie, he crossed the pavement, his polished shoes making no sound. He wasn't accustomed to making the first move. But tonight was different. He had 6 months, and the game had begun. "Miss Harper." Nathaniel's voice was smooth, disarming. Emily turned, her eyes narrowing slightly as she recognized him from the gala. "Mr. Cross," she replied politely, though her tone carried a hint of wariness. "I couldn't help but notice your work with the Harper Education Initiative," Nathaniel said, slipping seamlessly into charm mode. "It's rare to see someone so passionate in these circles." Emily raised an eyebrow. "And yet, you seemed more interested in your champagne than the cause we were there to support." Nathaniel chuckled, appreciating her directness. "Touché. I suppose I've grown cynical about these events. But your speech, it stood out." For a moment, Emily softened. She'd poured her heart into that speech, hoping to ignite even the smallest spark of interest. "Thank you," she said simply, "though I doubt it made much of a difference to people like you." Nathaniel tilted his head, intrigued by her candor. "People like me?" "You know what I mean," Emily said, folding her arms. "Wealthy, powerful, detached from the realities the rest of us face." Nathaniel's smile faltered for a split second before he recovered. "Maybe you're right, but that doesn't mean I don't want to help." Emily studied him for a long moment, her skepticism evident. "If you're serious, you can start by visiting our center. See the work we do." Nathaniel hadn't expected the invitation, and for a moment he hesitated. Then, with a calculated nod, he said, "I'd like that." The next day, Nathaniel arrived at the Harper Education Initiative's community center in Harlem. The building was old but well-maintained, its walls adorned with colorful murals painted by local children. The warmth inside was a stark contrast to the cold detachment of the gala. Laughter echoed through the halls, mingling with the sounds of teachers instructing and children chattering. Emily greeted him at the door, her demeanor professional but reserved. "I wasn't sure you'd show," she admitted. Nathaniel gave her a charming smile. "I like to keep people guessing." She led him through the center, explaining its programs and challenges. Nathaniel listened, genuinely interested despite himself. He noticed the way her face lit up when she spoke about the children, her passion shining through every word. It was contagious. As they passed a classroom, a young boy darted out, nearly colliding with Nathaniel. "Sorry, Miss Emily," he exclaimed, before running off. Emily smiled fondly. "That's Jamal. He's one of our brightest, but he has trouble sitting still." Nathaniel glanced down the hall, where Jamal had disappeared. "You seem to know them all personally." "Of course," Emily said. "They're not just numbers or statistics. They're people, and they deserve someone who sees them." Her words struck a chord Nathaniel hadn't expected. For the first time, he felt a twinge of discomfort, not at her judgment, but at the truth in it. By the end of the tour, Emily had warmed to Nathaniel, though her guard remained up. She thanked him for his interest, and he promised to consider ways he could help. As he left, Liam's words echoed in his mind. "She's different," Liam had said, and now Nathaniel understood why. Emily wasn't playing a game. For her, this wasn't about power or leverage. It was about people, and that made her both a challenge and a threat to everything Nathaniel thought he knew about himself. Back at her office, Emily sat at her cluttered desk, staring at the sizable check Nathaniel had left behind. It was more money than she'd ever received in a single donation, and it could solve several immediate problems. But something about it didn't sit right. Why would a man like Nathaniel Cross care about her nonprofit? Her instincts told her to be cautious, but the needs of her students outweighed her doubts. With a sigh, she placed the check in the deposit pile. If Nathaniel truly wanted to help, she would let him for now. Later that night, Nathaniel found himself unable to sleep. He poured himself a glass of whiskey and stared out the window of his penthouse, the city sprawling beneath him. For years, he'd been content with his life of luxury and control. But something about Emily Harper and her world had unsettled him. It wasn't just the bet, it was the way she made him feel. Like his wealth and power meant nothing in the face of her unshakable conviction. For the first time in years, Nathaniel felt small, and he wasn't sure if he hated it or craved more of it. The game had begun, but already Nathaniel sensed the rules were shifting. And for a man who thrived on control, that was the most dangerous feeling of all. The glimmering facade of Nathaniel Cross's world began to show its cracks as he delved deeper into Emily Harper's life. Beneath the polished veneer of power and wealth lay a man grappling with the unfamiliar pangs of self-reflection, a sensation sparked by the sincerity of someone who seemed to embody everything he was not. Nathaniel sat in the grand office of his Manhattan skyscraper, the walls adorned with modern art and a panoramic view of the city below. The world outside saw him as a titan of industry, the embodiment of success. Yet his thoughts were elsewhere, on the vibrant community center he'd visited just days before, and the woman who ran it with unwavering dedication. His assistant entered, placing a stack of reports on his desk. "The investors' meeting is at 3 p.m., sir," she said. "Shall I prepare the usual briefing?" Nathaniel nodded absent-mindedly. Yes, that's fine. As the door closed, he picked up the reports, but barely glanced at them. For the first time, numbers and projections felt meaningless. The image of Emily surrounded by children, her laughter echoing in the halls, lingered in his mind. She'd challenged his beliefs without even trying, her authenticity, exposing the hollowness of his carefully constructed persona. Meanwhile, Emily Harper was facing the harsh realities of her world. The Harper Education Initiative's community center buzzed with activity, but the weight of its financial struggles was ever present. Teachers worked tirelessly, often volunteering their time, while supplies were stretched thin. Emily juggled grant applications, fundraising campaigns, and the day-to-day operations, her determination unwavering, despite the mounting challenges. In her small office, Emily reviewed the center's budget with a furrowed brow. The donation from Nathaniel Cross had been a godsend, but it was only a temporary solution. The systemic neglect of communities like hers required more than sporadic acts of generosity. It demanded structural change. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a text from Margaret, one of the center's most dedicated volunteers. Jamal had another outburst today. Can we discuss? Emily sighed, setting aside her papers. The children were why she kept going, their potential shining despite the odds stacked against them. But they were also a reminder of the urgency of her mission. She replied quickly, "Of course. Let's meet after the art class tomorrow." Nathaniel's next encounter with Emily was carefully orchestrated. He arrived unannounced at the community center, carrying a box of supplies, books, art materials, and educational games. It was a gesture he hoped would seem spontaneous, though it had been meticulously planned. Emily greeted him at the door, her surprise evident. "Mr. Cross, I wasn't expecting you." "Nathaniel," he corrected with a disarming smile. "And I thought I'd stop by with a few things for the kids. I hope that's all right." Emily hesitated, her instincts urging caution, yet the children's needs outweighed her doubts. "Thank you," she said, stepping aside to let him in. As Nathaniel placed the box on a table, children gathered around, their curiosity piqued. Emily watched as he interacted with them, his polished demeanor softening in their presence. He knelt to their level, asking questions and listening intently to their answers. It was a side of him she hadn't expected, a glimpse of humanity beneath the corporate exterior. That evening, Emily reflected on the stark differences between her world and Nathaniel's. Her modest apartment in Harlem was a sanctuary, filled with second-hand furniture and framed photographs of the children she'd helped over the years. It was a far cry from the opulence Nathaniel undoubtedly returned to each night. As she sipped a cup of tea, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to him than met the eye. Yet her instincts reminded her to tread carefully. People like Nathaniel didn't enter her world without reason, and she couldn't afford to let her guard down. Back in his penthouse, Nathaniel stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, a glass of whiskey in hand. The city lights stretched endlessly before him, a testament to his success. But tonight, they felt cold and distant. His phone buzzed with a message from Liam. "How's the bet going? Don't tell me you're actually enjoying this." Nathaniel frowned, the words igniting a flicker of anger. Liam's taunts had always been part of their dynamic, a game of one-upmanship that kept them both sharp. But this time, it felt different. The bet was no longer about winning or losing. It had become something far more personal. He replied curtly, "It's under control." The next week, Nathaniel returned to the center, under the pretense of discussing a potential partnership. Emily was in the middle of organizing a food drive, her sleeves rolled up and hair tied back. She looked up as he approached, a mixture of surprise and guarded curiosity in her eyes. "Nathaniel," she greeted him, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I wasn't expecting you." "I thought I'd lend a hand," he said, rolling up his own sleeves, "if that's all right." Emily hesitated but nodded, handing him a clipboard. "You can start with the inventory. Just don't get in the way." As they worked side by side, the conversation flowed naturally. Nathaniel asked questions about the center's operations, genuinely interested in Emily's vision. She spoke passionately about the children and their potential, her optimism shining through, despite the challenges she faced. For a brief moment, Nathaniel felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in years. It wasn't about power or prestige. It was about connection. As Nathaniel's visits became more frequent, Emily began to lower her guard. She saw glimpses of a man who cared, though her instincts warned her to remain cautious. Meanwhile, Nathaniel found himself questioning his motives. The bet had become secondary to something he couldn't quite define. A need to be part of Emily's world, to earn her trust not for a wager, but for himself. Unbeknownst to Emily, Liam was watching from the sidelines, his presence a constant reminder of the deception that loomed over their budding connection. Nathaniel knew it was only a matter of time before the truth would surface, threatening to destroy everything he was beginning to value. One evening, as Nathaniel left the center, Emily lingered by the window, watching him walk away. Something about him didn't quite add up, and her instincts were rarely wrong. At the same time, Nathaniel paused at the corner, glancing back at the center, his expression conflicted. The storm brewing between them was inevitable, but for now, both were caught in the fragile balance between trust and betrayal. The delicate dance between authenticity and pretense intensified as Nathaniel Cross and Emily Harper's worlds grew more intertwined. Each encounter brought them closer to an inevitable reckoning, where masks would crumble, revealing the truths they both struggled to face. Nathaniel leaned back in his sleek office chair, his gaze fixed on the plans for the high-profile fundraiser he had orchestrated. His assistant, Marissa, stood by, awaiting his approval. "Everything looks perfect," Nathaniel said, signing off with a flourish. "Make sure Emily Harper's nonprofit is the centerpiece of the event." Marissa hesitated. "Sir, this level of promotion will draw attention." "Are you certain?" "I'm certain," he interrupted, his tone firm. "It's time people knew the value of her work." Yet behind his confidence lay an undercurrent of unease. He wasn't sure if this gesture was part of the wager or something more. The lines between strategy and sincerity had begun to blur, leaving Nathaniel navigating uncharted emotional territory. Across town, Emily sat in her modest office at the community center, staring at the invitation Nathaniel had sent. The event was grandiose, far removed from her grassroots efforts. She couldn't help but question his motives. This gala could bring in much-needed funding, Margaret, her closest advisor, said. "But it's risky. These circles don't always align with our values." Emily nodded thoughtfully. "Nathaniel's intentions seem genuine, but I can't shake the feeling that there's more to this." Margaret placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Trust your instincts, Emily. Just remember, you're doing this for the kids." With a deep breath, Emily decided to attend, vowing to represent her cause with unwavering integrity. The night of the fundraiser arrived, and Emily stepped into the opulent ballroom of the Grand Regency Hotel. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above, and the room buzzed with the chatter of Manhattan's elite. Emily felt out of place in her simple, elegant dress, a stark contrast to the extravagance around her. Nathaniel spotted her from across the room and made his way over, his tailored suit exuding confidence. "Emily," he greeted warmly, offering her a glass of champagne. I'm glad you could make it. Thank you for the invitation, she replied, her tone measured. It's overwhelming. Nathaniel chuckled. It's just a room full of people pretending to care about causes they barely understand. You're the real deal here. Emily's brow furrowed. If that's how you see it, why host this event? To give your work the spotlight it deserves, he said sincerely, though the weight of his ulterior motives lingered unspoken. From the periphery, Liam Warner observed their interaction with a smirk. He approached Nathaniel later in the evening, his voice dripping with mockery. You're playing the part well, Nate, Liam said, swirling his drink. But don't forget, this is still a game. Don't let her fool you into thinking otherwise. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. This isn't about the bet anymore. Liam's laughter echoed in Nathaniel's ears. Oh, it's always about the bet. Don't lose sight of that. As Liam walked away, Nathaniel's resolve wavered. The wager had begun as a challenge, but now it felt like a trap, one he'd willingly walked into. During the evening, Emily found herself in a conversation with a group of donors. They asked about her journey, prompting her to share pieces of her past. I left a corporate job years ago to start this nonprofit, she explained. It wasn't easy, but I knew I couldn't stand by while children in underserved communities were denied opportunities. Her words resonated with many in the room, though she noticed Nathaniel listening intently from a distance. For the first time, he glimpsed the sacrifices she had made, deepening his respect for her resilience. As the gala wound down, Nathaniel found Emily on the terrace, gazing out at the city skyline. He approached quietly, his usual bravado replaced with a tentative sincerity. You handled tonight beautifully, he said. Emily turned to him, her expression thoughtful. I'm not sure I belong in a world like this. Nathaniel leaned against the railing. Maybe that's why it needs someone like you. She studied him, searching for any trace of insincerity. Why do you care so much about my work, Nathaniel? What's in it for you? The question caught him off guard. For a moment, he considered telling her the truth, but fear held him back. Instead, he offered a half-truth. I admire your dedication. It's refreshing. Emily nodded, though doubt lingered in her eyes. I hope that's true. Unbeknownst to Emily, Liam was scheming behind the scenes. He approached several donors at the gala, planting seeds of doubt about Nathaniel's intentions and Emily's nonprofit. Nathaniel has a habit of taking on pet projects, Liam said with a sly grin. Let's hope this one lasts longer than the others. His words spread like whispers in the wind, subtly undermining the trust Nathaniel had worked so hard to build. In the days following the gala, Emily began to notice small inconsistencies in Nathaniel's actions. His generosity seemed too calculated, his charm too rehearsed. Her instincts, honed by years of navigating difficult circumstances, told her to tread carefully. Meanwhile, Nathaniel struggled with his growing feelings for Emily. The bet felt like a poison seeping into everything, tainting even his most genuine moments. One evening, as he left the community center, he overheard a conversation between Emily and Margaret. I can't shake the feeling that he's hiding something, Emily said. I want to trust him. But Nathaniel froze, guilt washing over him. He realized that the walls he'd built around himself were not only keeping the others out, they were trapping him inside. As Nathaniel grappled with his internal conflict, Liam made his next move, setting a plan in motion that would force the truth into the open. Emily, unaware of the storm brewing, continued her work, determined to protect her community from harm. But the masks they all wore were beginning to slip, and the consequences would be far-reaching. The weight of Nathaniel's deceit began to press against the carefully constructed walls of his persona, threatening to expose the fragile truths he had kept hidden. In contrast, Emily's world, though outwardly humble, proved a fortress of resilience and integrity. Their paths, intertwined yet conflicted, moved closer to an inevitable collision. Nathaniel sat alone in his penthouse, the city lights sprawling beneath him, like a tapestry of possibility and regret. The gala had been a success, by all external measures, yet he felt no sense of accomplishment. The memories of Emily's sincere gratitude clashed with the reality of his deception. He poured himself a drink, the amber liquid swirling like his thoughts. The echo of Emily's words haunted him. "Why do you care so much about my work?" For the first time he wasn't sure of the answer. Liam's taunts replayed in his mind, fueling his self-loathing. He hated the bet, hated the person it revealed him to be. But more than that, he hated the idea of losing Emily's trust, a trust he was only beginning to earn. Across town, Emily sat at her kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. The gala had been an overwhelming success, securing much-needed funding for her nonprofit. Yet, a nagging unease lingered. Nathaniel's generosity seemed almost too good to be true. Margaret, her confidant, sat across from her. "You've been quiet since the gala. Something on your mind?" Emily sighed. "Nathaniel, he's done so much for us, but I can't shake the feeling that there's more to his story." Margaret offered a knowing smile. "Trust is earned, not given. Keep your eyes open, but don't close your heart." Emily nodded, her resolve firming. She would give Nathaniel the benefit of the doubt. For now, Nathaniel's insomnia drove him to his study, where an old photo album sat collecting dust. He flipped through the pages, each image a stark reminder of his cold upbringing. His parents, socialites more interested in appearances than affection, had molded him into the man he was, a man who equated success with worth. One photo stopped him, a young Nathaniel standing beside Liam at a boarding school graduation. The two had been inseparable then, bound by shared ambition and a competitive streak that often bordered on cruelty. Liam had been the only person Nathaniel trusted, but that trust had long since eroded. The phone buzzed, interrupting his thoughts. It was a message from Liam. "Don't forget what's at stake." Nathaniel tossed the phone aside, his frustration mounting. For the first time, he wondered if he had the strength to break free from Liam's influence. Nathaniel's next visit to Emily's community center marked a turning point. She had invited him to observe a literacy workshop, and though he approached it with skepticism, the experience left him unexpectedly moved. He watched as Emily worked with a group of children, her patience and kindness evident in every interaction. One boy, Daniel, struggled with a reading exercise, his frustration mounting. Emily knelt beside him, her voice soft but firm. "You're doing great, Daniel," she said. "Remember, every word you learn is a step toward your dreams." Nathaniel felt a pang of something unfamiliar, admiration. He had always viewed vulnerability as a weakness, yet here was Emily, turning her compassion into strength. After the session, Daniel approached Nathaniel. "Are you Miss Emily's friend?" Nathaniel hesitated before nodding. "I hope so." The boy grinned. "She's the best. She makes people believe they can do anything." Nathaniel's chest tightened. For the first time he saw Emily not just as a challenge or a means to an end, but as someone who genuinely inspired those around her. Later that evening, as Emily locked up the center, Nathaniel offered to walk her to her car. The city streets were quiet, the air heavy with the promise of rain. "You've built something incredible here," Nathaniel said. "The kids look up to you." Emily smiled, though her eyes held a hint of caution. "It's not about me. It's about giving them a chance to thrive." Her humility struck him. He wanted to tell her everything, to confess the bet, the lies, and his growing feelings. But fear held him back. Instead, he changed the subject, masking his turmoil with charm. Emily's instincts, however, were sharp. She sensed the tension in his voice, the unspoken words hanging between them. Though she couldn't pinpoint the cause, she knew there was more to Nathaniel Cross than he let on. Liam, ever the opportunist, grew impatient with Nathaniel's wavering resolve. He began planting seeds of doubt in Emily's mind, subtly undermining her trust in Nathaniel. During a chance encounter at a fundraiser, Liam approached Emily with a casual smile. "Nathaniel's quite the enigma, isn't he? Always has been." Emily raised an eyebrow. "You've known him a long time." "Since we were kids," Liam said, his tone light but calculated. "He's a master of reinvention. Just be careful, Emily. Not everything is as it seems." Though Emily dismissed his words, they lingered in her mind, feeding her growing unease. One evening, after a particularly challenging day at the community center, Emily found Nathaniel waiting outside, a hesitant look on his face. "Can we talk?" he asked. She nodded, leading him to a nearby bench. For a moment, neither spoke, the silence stretching between them like a fragile thread. "I admire what you do," Nathaniel said finally. "You make people believe in something better. I've never been good at that." Emily tilted her head, studying him. "What makes you say that?" Nathaniel hesitated, the weight of his secrets pressing down on him. "Because I've spent my life pretending to be someone I'm not." Emily's expression softened, but she didn't press him. Instead, she placed a hand on his arm. "You don't have to pretend with me." Her words, simple yet profound, left Nathaniel reeling. For the first time he wondered if redemption was possible, not just for the bet, but for himself. As Nathaniel walked Emily to her car, a figure emerged from the shadows, Liam. His smirk was as sharp as ever, his presence a reminder of the wager that had set everything in motion. "Good to see you, Nate," Liam said, his tone dripping with mockery. "Care to join me for a drink?" Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "Not now." Liam's gaze shifted to Emily, his smile widening. "Miss Harper, you're quite the inspiration. I see why Nathaniel is so invested." Emily frowned, sensing the underlying tension. "Do you two know each other well?" Nathaniel's silence spoke volumes, and Emily's unease deepened. As Liam walked away, his laughter echoed in the night, leaving Nathaniel to face the fallout of his duplicity. The sky above Manhattan was a blanket of muted gray, rain threatening to descend, as Nathaniel Cross sat in his car outside Emily Harper's community center. He drummed his fingers against the steering wheel, his nerves frayed. Every fiber of his being screamed for him to drive away, to leave behind the complications that Emily had brought into his life. Yet here he was, struggling with the emotions he could no longer suppress. Inside the community center, laughter and chatter filled the air. Emily was in her element, surrounded by children painting bright murals on large sheets of paper. Nathaniel entered quietly, his tailored suit an odd contrast to the casual atmosphere. He felt out of place, but determined. "Mr. Cross." Daniel, the young boy from the literacy workshop, ran up to him with a wide grin. "Are you going to help us paint?" Nathaniel hesitated, caught off guard. "I'm not much of an artist." Emily appeared beside Daniel, her expression softer than usual. "Don't worry, we won't judge you too harshly." For the first time Nathaniel chuckled, a genuine, unguarded sound. He rolled up his sleeves and joined the children, earning a few surprised glances from Emily. It was a small gesture, but it chipped away at the wall of skepticism she had built around him. Later that evening, as the children filed out, Nathaniel stayed behind to help Emily clean up. They worked in silence at first, the quiet punctuated by the occasional clatter of paintbrushes and the rustling of paper. "Why do you do this?" Nathaniel asked suddenly, his voice low. Emily glanced at him, her brow furrowing. "Do what?" "This." He gestured around the room. "Give so much of yourself to people who might never be able to give back." Emily paused, her expression thoughtful. "Because someone once did the same for me." Nathaniel waited, sensing there was more to the story. Emily hesitated before continuing. "When I was a kid, my mom worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. There was a woman in our neighborhood who ran a small after-school program out of her garage. She didn't have much, but she made sure we had a safe place to go. She believed in us when no one else did." Nathaniel nodded, the story resonating with something deep within him. It reminded him of the stark contrast between Emily's upbringing and his own. While her life had been marked by resilience and community, his had been defined by privilege and isolation. Despite the growing connection between them, Nathaniel's internal struggle intensified. Each act of kindness he extended felt tainted by the lie that had brought him into Emily's life. And Liam's looming presence only exacerbated his guilt. During a phone call that night, Liam's voice dripped with mockery. "You're spending an awful lot of time with her, Nate. Starting to forget the stakes?" Nathaniel clenched his jaw. "This isn't a game, Liam." "Oh, but it is," Liam countered. "And you agreed to play. Don't get soft on me now." Nathaniel hung up without responding, his frustration boiling over. He knew he was walking a dangerous line, but for the first time in his life, he felt compelled to do the right thing, whatever that meant. The following week, Emily organized a small fundraiser at the center, inviting local donors and community leaders. Nathaniel attended, blending seamlessly into the crowd of supporters. He watched as Emily spoke passionately about the center's mission, her sincerity drawing admiration from everyone present. But as the evening progressed, a seemingly innocuous remark from Liam threatened to unravel everything. "Well done, Nate," Liam said, sidling up to him with a glass of champagne. "You've really sold this whole philanthropist act. Almost makes me believe you care." Emily, who had approached just in time to hear Liam's comment, froze. Her eyes darted between the two men, confusion and suspicion clouding her expression. "What does he mean by that?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with an edge. Nathaniel hesitated, his mind racing. "It's nothing," he said quickly. "Liam has a twisted sense of humor." Emily didn't look convinced. "If this is just some game to you—" "It's not," Nathaniel interrupted, his tone more forceful than he intended. "I swear, Emily, I'm here because I want to help." Her gaze lingered on him for a moment longer, before she nodded, though her expression remained guarded. Nathaniel knew he had narrowly avoided disaster, but the incident left a crack in the fragile trust they had begun to build. Later that night, as Nathaniel sat alone in his penthouse, he replayed the evening's events in his mind. The guilt that had been gnawing at him now felt insurmountable. He knew he couldn't keep up the charade much longer without risking everything, not just the bet, but the connection he was beginning to cherish. Across town, Emily sat at her kitchen table, her mind racing. Liam's comment had planted a seed of doubt, and though she wanted to believe in Nathaniel's sincerity, a nagging voice in the back of her mind warned her to be cautious. Meanwhile, Liam, ever the puppet master, watched from the sidelines with a satisfied smirk. He had sown the seeds of discord, and it was only a matter of time before the truth came to light. The storm brewing between Nathaniel and Emily was inevitable, and when it broke, neither of them would emerge unscathed. The morning sun, cast a pale glow over Manhattan as Emily Harper prepared for another busy day at the community center. Despite her lingering doubts about Nathaniel Cross, she couldn't deny the impact his involvement had brought. Donations had increased, and the center was finally gaining the attention it deserved. Yet, a quiet voice in the back of her mind reminded her of Liam's cryptic remark at the fundraiser. Meanwhile, Nathaniel paced his office and at Cross Enterprises, his mind consumed by a growing sense of dread. He knew the walls were closing in, and it was only a matter of time before Emily discovered the truth. His determination to change, to become the man Emily deserved, was overshadowed by the reality of his initial deception. That evening, Emily arrived at the center to prepare for a workshop. As she walked through the halls, she overheard muffled voices coming from one of the rooms. Curiosity piqued. She approached quietly, recognizing Nathaniel's voice. "She's not just some wager, Liam," Nathaniel said, his tone sharp. "This isn't what I wanted." "Save it, Nate," Liam retorted. "You're only saying that because you've caught feelings. Don't forget how this started. You made a bet, and I expect you to see it through." Emily's heart plummeted. She pressed herself against the wall, her breathing shallow. Every word felt like a dagger. The man she had cautiously begun to trust was nothing more than a manipulative liar. Emily waited until Liam left before stepping into the room. Her presence startled Nathaniel, who turned to face her with wide eyes. He saw the hurt etched across her face and knew immediately that she had heard everything. "How long were you going to keep this from me?" she demanded, her voice trembling with anger. "Emily, please, let me explain," Nathaniel began, his words faltering under her piercing gaze. "Explain what?" she snapped. "That all of this, your donations, your time at the center, every kind word you said, was part of some sick game?" "It started that way," Nathaniel admitted, his voice thick with regret. "But it's not like that anymore. I swear to you, Emily, my feelings for you are real." Emily laughed bitterly, tears welling in her eyes. "Real? Do you even know what that word means? You've been lying to me this entire time. How am I supposed to believe anything you say?" Nathaniel reached out, but Emily stepped back, shaking her head. "Don't. Just don't." She turned and walked away, leaving Nathaniel standing alone in the empty room, the weight of his actions pressing down on him like a heavy chain. The days that followed were a blur of pain and regret for both Nathaniel and Emily. At the community center, Emily threw herself into her work, using her heartbreak as fuel to keep going. But her usual warmth was replaced by a quiet coldness, and those around her noticed the change. Nathaniel, on the other hand, retreated into solitude. He ignored calls, canceled meetings, and avoided public appearances. The penthouse that had once symbolized his success now felt like a prison. He spent hours replaying his conversations with Emily, wishing he could take back every lie. Liam, ever the instigator, paid Nathaniel a visit one evening. He found his old friend sitting on the floor of his living room, surrounded by empty glasses and scattered papers. "Well, this is pathetic," Liam said, smirking as he poured himself a drink. "You've really let her get to you." "Get out," Nathaniel muttered, his voice devoid of its usual strength. "Come on, Nate," Liam continued, ignoring the dismissal. "She was never going to forgive you. Women like her, they don't belong in our world. You did her a favor." Nathaniel shot to his feet, his eyes blazing with fury. "No, Liam, you're wrong. She's better than either of us could ever hope to be. And I'm done listening to you." Liam raised an eyebrow, amused by the outburst. "We'll see how long that lasts," he said, setting his glass down before sauntering out. Left alone once again, Nathaniel stared out at the city skyline, his reflection faint in the glass. He had built his empire on ambition and control, but none of it mattered now. The only thing that truly mattered was the one person he had driven away. Determined to make amends, Nathaniel began taking steps to rectify his mistakes. He anonymously donated additional funds to the community center, ensuring its programs would continue without interruption. He also started cutting ties with Liam and the toxic influences in his life, a small but significant step toward redemption. At the center, Emily found solace in the community she had built. Her colleagues rallied around her, offering support and encouragement. Slowly but surely, she began to heal. She refused to let Nathaniel's betrayal define her or derail her mission. One evening, as Emily locked up the center, she found an envelope taped to the door. Inside was a handwritten letter from Nathaniel, apologizing for his actions and detailing his efforts to change. Though she was skeptical, a small part of her couldn't ignore the sincerity in his words. As the weeks passed, Emily noticed subtle changes in Nathaniel's behavior. He no longer attended high-profile events or made headlines for lavish purchases. Instead, he seemed to fade into the background, his focus shifting to quieter, more meaningful endeavors. One day, while reviewing new funding proposals for the center, Emily came across a significant donation from an anonymous benefactor. Though the name wasn't listed, she knew in her heart who it was. Standing by the window of her small office, Emily watched the bustling city streets below. She didn't know if she could ever fully forgive Nathaniel, but she couldn't deny that he was trying. And perhaps, in time, they could find a way to move forward, together or apart. Nathaniel Cross sat in the dimly lit lounge of his penthouse, a glass of scotch in hand. The once celebrated billionaire now felt the weight of his hollow victories. Across from him, Liam Warner leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing on his lips. "You know, I warned you about this, Nate," Liam said, swirling the liquid in his glass. "You let her get under your skin. And for what? A girl like Emily was never going to understand someone like you." Nathaniel clenched his jaw, his grip tightening on the glass. "You don't know her, Liam?" Liam chuckled. "Oh, but I know you. You've spent your whole life playing the game, and now you think you can rewrite the rules because of some bleeding heart teacher?" "This isn't a game anymore," Nathaniel snapped, his voice low and dangerous. "You and your petty schemes mean nothing to me." Liam's smirk faltered, but he quickly masked it with a shrug. "Suit yourself, Nate, but don't come crying to me when she wants nothing to do with you." As Liam left, Nathaniel stared at the door, his mind racing. He knew Liam was right about one thing. He had let Emily change him. But for the first time in his life, that didn't feel like a weakness. The days following Emily's confrontation felt like an eternity. Nathaniel avoided public appearances, his usual air of confidence replaced by a heavy sense of regret. He spent hours replaying their conversation, wishing he could undo the damage he had caused. At Cross Enterprises, his absence didn't go unnoticed. His assistant, Claire, tentatively approached him in his office one afternoon. "Mr. Cross, you have a meeting with the board in 10 minutes, she said, her voice hesitant. Nathaniel barely looked up. "Cancel it." Claire hesitated, then stepped closer. "Ah, sir, if I may, you've always told me that the only way to fix a mistake is to face it head on. Whatever's going on, hiding isn't going to solve it." Her words struck a chord, but Nathaniel couldn't muster the energy to respond. After she left, he stared out the window, the city skyline blurred by his thoughts. He had built his empire on ambition and control, but now none of it seemed to matter. Across town, Emily Harper threw herself into her work, with renewed determination. The heartbreak she felt over Nathaniel's betrayal fueled her resolve to keep the community center thriving. With each passing day, her confidence grew, though the pain lingered. One evening, as she prepared for a meeting with potential donors, her colleague Sarah approached her. "Emily, are you sure you're okay?" Sarah asked gently. "You've been working nonstop." "I'm fine," Emily replied, forcing a smile. "The center needs me." Sarah nodded, though her concern remained. "Just remember, it's okay to lean on others when you need to." Emily appreciated the sentiment, but she couldn't bring herself to confide in anyone. The scars from Nathaniel's betrayal were still too raw. As weeks turned into months, Nathaniel began taking steps to atone for his actions. He anonymously donated significant funds to the community center, ensuring its programs could continue without interruption. He also began cutting ties with Liam and other toxic influences in his life, a small but significant step toward redemption. One evening, Nathaniel found himself outside the community center, watching from a distance as Emily interacted with the children. Her laughter rang out, a stark contrast to the turmoil he felt inside. He wanted to approach her, to apologize once more, but he knew she wasn't ready to hear it. Instead, he returned to his penthouse and began drafting a letter. He poured his heart into the words, detailing his regret and his efforts to change. When he finished, he sealed the envelope and addressed it to Emily, leaving it at the center's door the next morning. When Emily found the letter, she hesitated before opening it. As she read Nathaniel's words, she felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and a faint glimmer of hope. While she wasn't ready to forgive him, she couldn't ignore the sincerity in his apology. That evening, Emily sat in her small apartment, staring at the letter. She knew Nathaniel was trying to change, but trust wasn't something she could give so easily. Still, a part of her couldn't help but wonder if there was a chance for redemption. For both of them. One night, while reviewing new funding proposals for the center, Emily came across an anonymous donation that far exceeded any they had received before. Though the name wasn't listed, she had a strong suspicion of who it was. Across town, Nathaniel stood on the balcony of his penthouse, gazing out at the city lights. He knew his journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of purpose. He didn't know if Emily would ever forgive him, but he was determined to prove that he could be the man she deserved. As the city buzzed with life around them, both Nathaniel and Emily found themselves at a crossroads. Their paths had diverged, but fate had a way of bringing even the most unlikely of people back together. Nathaniel Cross was no longer the man he used to be, or at least he didn't want to be. The road to redemption was proving to be more challenging than he had anticipated. Each day brought new temptations to slip back into old habits, but the image of Emily Harper's tear-filled eyes kept him grounded. He started small. After cutting ties with Liam Warner and his toxic circle, Nathaniel began dedicating himself to charitable efforts. No cameras, no press, just quiet, meaningful actions that he hoped would make a difference. One of his first moves was funding a scholarship program for underprivileged students. He remembered Emily's passion for education and how she had spoken about the transformative power of learning. His foundation remained anonymous, but he followed the program's progress closely. Each success story reminded him of Emily and the work she had devoted her life to. Weeks turned into months, and while Nathaniel's efforts grew, so did his longing for Emily's forgiveness. He knew better than to approach her directly, not yet. Instead, he decided to support her work from the shadows, ensuring the community center had everything it needed to thrive. Emily, on the other hand, noticed the sudden influx of resources but had no idea where they were coming from. She was skeptical at first, wary of ulterior motives, But as time passed, she began to see the tangible impact the donations had on her programs. The children now had access to new books, updated technology, and even after-school enrichment activities. One day, as Emily reviewed the center's finances, Sarah burst into her office with a bright smile. "You're not going to believe this," Sarah said, holding up a grant approval letter. "We just got funding to expand the library." Emily's eyes widened in disbelief. "How? I didn't even apply for a grant this big." "It's anonymous," Sarah replied. "But whoever it is, they clearly believe in what we're doing." Emily's heart swelled with gratitude, but a small part of her couldn't shake the feeling that Nathaniel might be behind it all. If it was him, what did that mean? Could she trust his intentions? Nathaniel's transformation wasn't limited to his philanthropy. He began volunteering at various organizations, immersing himself in the very struggles he had once ignored. The experience was humbling, forcing him to confront the privileges he had taken for granted. One afternoon, while helping distribute meals at a local shelter, Nathaniel struck up a conversation with an older man named Frank. "You don't look like the kind of guy who needs to be here," Frank said, eyeing Nathaniel's polished appearance. "I don't," Nathaniel admitted. "But I want to be." Frank chuckled. "Well, that's a first. Most folks in your shoes wouldn't even look our way." Nathaniel paused, the weight of Frank's words sinking in. "I'm trying to change that." "Good luck, kid," Frank said with a nod. "The world could use more people like you, if you're genuine about it." That night, Nathaniel reflected on Frank's words. He realized that his redemption wasn't just about winning back Emily's trust. It was about becoming a person worthy of respect, someone who could make a real difference. As Nathaniel's efforts grew, so did his presence in the community. He attended town meetings, advocated for local initiatives, and even spearheaded a project to renovate a neglected park. Slowly but surely, people began to take notice. Emily, too, couldn't ignore the changes she saw. At a community event, she spotted Nathaniel helping set up tables and interacting with volunteers. He looked different, less polished, more approachable. For the first time, she saw a glimpse of sincerity in his actions. After the event, Emily found herself lingering near Nathaniel. She wanted to thank him for his contributions, but the memory of his betrayal held her back. Before she could decide, Nathaniel turned and met her gaze. "Emily," he said softly, his voice tinged with hope. She hesitated, then nodded curtly. "Nathaniel." Their exchange was brief, but it was enough to plant a seed of possibility. For the first time since their fallout, Emily considered the idea that Nathaniel might truly be changing. Despite his progress, Nathaniel's journey was far from over. Liam, embittered by Nathaniel's rejection of their friendship, began spreading rumors in the business world. He painted Nathaniel as a liability, someone who had lost his edge and was no longer fit to lead. The whispers reached Nathaniel's board of directors, who grew increasingly uneasy about his absence from corporate affairs. At a heated meeting, one of the board members, Victoria Green, confronted him. "Your recent actions are admirable, Nathaniel," Victoria said, her tone laced with condescension. "But Cross Enterprises isn't a charity. We need you to focus on the company." Nathaniel met her gaze evenly. "The company is fine. Our profits are steady, and our projects are on track." "For now," Victoria countered. "But your priorities seem misplaced." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. He knew she wasn't entirely wrong, but he refused to let his newfound purpose waver. He left the meeting more determined than ever to balance his responsibilities and continue his path toward redemption. One evening, as Nathaniel walked home from a meeting, he noticed a shadowy figure lingering near his building. His instincts told him to keep moving, but something about the figure's posture made him stop. "Can I help you?" Nathaniel called out. The figure stepped into the light, revealing Liam's smirking face. "Oh, you've helped plenty, Nate. Now it's my turn." Before Nathaniel could react, Liam handed him an envelope and disappeared into the night. Inside, Nathaniel found a series of photos and documents, evidence that could ruin everything he had worked for. Nathaniel's hands trembled as he realized the magnitude of Liam's threat. The stakes had just been raised, and his resolve would be tested like never before. Nathaniel sat at his desk, staring at the damning photos and documents Liam had delivered. Each piece of evidence was meticulously curated to undermine everything Nathaniel had worked to rebuild. Anonymous donations traced back to his accounts, confidential emails hacked and distorted, and speculative reports tying him to questionable dealings. Liam's motives were clear: revenge. But the timing couldn't have been worse. Nathaniel's newfound dedication to supporting Emily's nonprofit and transforming his own legacy was already tenuous. One public scandal could destroy it all. The next morning, Nathaniel made the decision to confront Liam directly. He tracked him to a private club in the city, one of the exclusive lounges where men like Liam thrived on power plays and whispered deals. Liam greeted Nathaniel with a smug grin, lifting a glass of scotch. Nathaniel Cross. Always so predictable. Nathaniel didn't sit. Instead, he leaned over the table, his voice low and firm. "What do you want, Liam?" Liam feigned innocence, swirling his drink. "Want? Oh, come on, Nate. You know me better than that. I don't want anything. This question mark. This is just a reminder of what happens when you forget where you came from." "You mean your world?" Nathaniel shot back. "The one built on lies and manipulation?" Liam chuckled. "You used to thrive in that world. And now, you've traded it all for what? Some misguided redemption arc." Nathaniel clenched his fists, but he forced himself to stay composed. "You're wrong about me, Liam. I'm not that person anymore." "Then prove it," Liam said, his smirk widening. "Walk away from Emily Harper and her little nonprofit. Go back to being the man you were born to be. Or I release everything, and we both watch your fragile new world crumble." Nathaniel left the club with a storm brewing inside him. Liam's words cut deeper than he wanted to admit. Could he truly escape his past? Or was Liam right? That he was still the same man at his core, only pretending to change? His resolve was tested that night, as he sat alone in his apartment. The photos and documents were spread across his coffee table, each one a reminder of how precarious his position had become. He thought of Emily, of her trust in him, and how easily it could all be shattered. But then he remembered Frank's words at the shelter. "The world could use more people like you, if you're genuine about it." He couldn't let Liam win. Not this time. The following day, Nathaniel began his counterattack. He met with Sophia, a cybersecurity expert he had worked with during his corporate days, and explained the situation. "This isn't just about protecting myself," Nathaniel said. "It's about proving that I'm not the man Liam thinks I am." Sophia nodded, her fingers already flying across her laptop. "If Liam's been digging into your accounts, he's left a trail. Let's find it." Together, they spent hours uncovering Liam's schemes. It turned out that Liam had been orchestrating a smear campaign for weeks, planting false narratives and bribing reporters to publish stories that painted Nathaniel as a fraud. Nathaniel's anger simmered, but Sophia's calm determination kept him focused. "The best way to beat someone like Liam," she said, "is to show the world who he really is." Meanwhile, Emily couldn't ignore the growing whispers about Nathaniel's involvement in shady dealings. She tried to focus on her work, but the doubts gnawed at her. Had she been wrong to let him back into her life, even tentatively? Her assistant, Sarah, noticed her unease and approached her. "You're thinking about Nathaniel, aren't you?" Emily sighed. "I want to believe he's changed, but you're afraid of being hurt again," Sarah finished. "It's okay to be cautious, Emily. Just don't let fear stop you from seeing the truth." Emily nodded, though the uncertainty lingered. As the weeks passed, Nathaniel intensified his efforts to support Emily's nonprofit. He personally attended every board meeting, ensuring that the organization was transparent and well-funded. He even started mentoring some of the students, sharing his experiences and encouraging them to dream big. One evening, after a particularly long day at the center, Emily found Nathaniel alone in the library, organizing books. "You don't have to do this, you know," she said, leaning against the doorframe. Nathaniel looked up, surprised but pleased to see her. "I want to. This place matters, Emily. What you've built here matters." For a moment, Emily saw vulnerability in his eyes that she hadn't noticed before. It wasn't the polished charm of the man she'd met months ago. This was someone trying, really trying, to make amends. The tension between Nathaniel and Liam finally reached its peak at a charity gala. Ironically, the same event where the original bet had been made. Liam had orchestrated a public spectacle, inviting key figures from Nathaniel's past and planting reporters to capture every moment. As Nathaniel mingled with guests, he felt the weight of their scrutinizing gazes. Whispers followed him wherever he went, and he knew Liam's trap was about to spring. When Liam finally approached him, he made no effort to hide his glee. "Enjoying the attention, Nate?" Nathaniel turned to face him, his expression calm but resolute. "If you're going to make your move, do it now. I'm done playing your games." Liam laughed, raising his glass in mock salute. "Oh, it's already done. The question is, can you handle the fallout?" Unbeknownst to Liam, Sophia had been working behind the scenes to expose his own misdeeds. As Liam smirked, Nathaniel's phone buzzed with a message from her. "It's done. Check the live feed." Nathaniel opened the link to see a breaking news report. Sophia had leaked documents proving Liam's involvement in numerous unethical deals, effectively dismantling his credibility in real time. The tables had turned. Liam's downfall was swift and public. As reporters swarmed him at the gala, Nathaniel quietly slipped away. He didn't need to gloat. His actions spoke for themselves. Emily, who had watched the events unfold from a distance, found Nathaniel outside, leaning against a railing and gazing at the city skyline. "You did it," she said softly. Nathaniel turned to her, his expression weary but relieved. "I didn't do it for me. I did it for this. For us." Emily hesitated, then took a step closer. "I don't know if I can trust you completely yet, but I'm starting to believe in you." It wasn't a declaration of forgiveness, but it was a start. And for Nathaniel, that was enough. The air between Nathaniel and Emily was tense yet hopeful. After their conversation outside the gala, Emily spent several days in reflection. Her heart ached with conflicting emotions: gratitude for Nathaniel's genuine efforts to support her nonprofit, and the lingering sting of betrayal from the wager that had set everything into motion. One morning, Emily made her decision. She arrived at Nathaniel's penthouse unannounced, the city skyline shimmering in the background. Nathaniel, startled by her presence, opened the door with a mixture of surprise and hope in his eyes. "I'm not here to forgive you," Emily began, her tone measured. "But I'm willing to give you a chance to show me who you really are. No more grand gestures, no more secrets, just honesty." Nathaniel nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I promise, Emily. No more games." Nathaniel and Emily began spending time together, tentatively rebuilding their connection. Their interactions were no longer the calculated exchanges of their earlier relationship. Instead, they were filled with quiet moments of vulnerability. Nathaniel volunteered at the education center weekly, assisting with everything from tutoring children to organizing supplies. He worked alongside Emily without pretense, and the children quickly warmed to him. One evening, as they painted a mural with the kids, Nathaniel paused to watch Emily. Her laughter rang out as she helped a young girl clean a streak of paint from her cheek. For the first time, Nathaniel realized how deeply he admired her resilience and compassion. Emily caught his gaze and smiled, a flicker of warmth breaking through her guarded demeanor. "You've got paint on your face, Mr. Cross." Nathaniel chuckled, wiping his cheek clumsily. "Guess I'm not as polished as I used to be." Despite the growing trust between them, moments of tension arose. Emily struggled to fully believe in Nathaniel's transformation, while Nathaniel feared that his past mistakes would overshadow his efforts. During a fundraising event for the nonprofit, an attendee, a journalist, approached Emily with questions about Nathaniel's involvement. "Isn't it convenient," the journalist asked, "that a man like Nathaniel Cross suddenly becomes the face of philanthropy? Seems like a PR stunt to me." Emily's chest tightened, but she remained composed. "Nathaniel's contributions speak for themselves. We wouldn't have made this progress without him." Later, when she recounted the incident to Nathaniel, he sighed deeply. "I'm not surprised people think that. But I don't care about public perception anymore, Emily. I just want to do the right thing." Emily nodded, her expression softening. "Then keep doing it. Actions speak louder than words." One evening, as they cleaned up, after a long day at the center, Nathaniel opened up about his childhood. Sitting on the worn-out couch in Emily's office, he recounted the pressure of growing up in a cold, high-achieving household. "My father only cared about results," Nathaniel said, his voice tinged with bitterness. "Emotions were weaknesses. Kindness was a liability. I learned early on that success was the only thing that mattered." Emily listened intently, her heart aching for the boy Nathaniel had once been. "And yet, here you are, trying to rewrite that narrative." Nathaniel looked at her, his eyes filled with earnestness. "Because of you, you showed me there's another way." As their relationship deepened, a major crisis tested their fragile bond. A predatory investor, who had been eyeing the nonprofit's valuable property for months, filed a lawsuit to claim the land. Emily was devastated. Losing the property would mean shutting down the education center. Nathaniel immediately stepped in, leveraging his legal team to fight the case. However, the cost of the battle threatened to deplete Nathaniel's personal fortune. When Emily found out, she confronted him. "You can't risk everything for me," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm not doing this just for you," Nathaniel replied firmly. "I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do, and I'll see it through no matter the cost." Emily's walls began to crumble. For the first time, she saw the extent of Nathaniel's commitment, not as a calculated move, but as an act of genuine selflessness. The lawsuit became a turning point in their relationship. Nathaniel's relentless efforts to save the nonprofit brought them closer, and Emily found herself letting go of the doubts that had plagued her. One evening, after a particularly grueling court session, Nathaniel and Emily shared a quiet dinner at a small diner near the courthouse. Over cups of lukewarm coffee, Emily reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "You're not the man I thought you were," she said softly. "And maybe that's a good thing." Nathaniel smiled, his heart swelling with hope. "I'll spend the rest of my life proving that to you." Just as the lawsuit neared its resolution, Nathaniel received a cryptic message from Liam. It was a photo of an old contract between Nathaniel's former company and the predatory investor, a deal Nathaniel had signed years ago, unwittingly giving the investor leverage. The message read, "Even the strongest foundations can crack. Are you ready to watch yours fall?" Nathaniel's heart sank. The past he had tried so hard to escape was about to resurface, threatening everything he had built with Emily. Nathaniel sat alone in his study, staring at the photograph Liam had sent. The contract in the image was a relic of his past, a time when he had prioritized profit over principle. It was a deal he barely remembered signing, yet its implications now threatened to undo everything he had worked for with Emily. The next morning, Nathaniel met with his legal team. They confirmed his worst fear. The investor's claim on the nonprofit's property was legally sound, strengthened by the old contract. To fight it would require Nathaniel to liquidate a significant portion of his assets. "I'll do it," Nathaniel said firmly, his voice unwavering. His advisors exchanged uncertain glances. "Mr. Cross, this could leave you financially vulnerable," one of them warned. "I've been vulnerable before," Nathaniel replied. "But this time, it's worth it." Emily, unaware of Nathaniel's decision, continued to prepare for the potential closure of the education center. She had grown tired of fighting battles she couldn't win. One evening, as she packed boxes in her office, Nathaniel arrived unannounced. "What are you doing here?" Emily asked, her voice tinged with exhaustion. Nathaniel stepped inside, holding a stack of legal documents. "I found a way to save the center," he said, placing the papers on her desk. Emily frowned, flipping through the pages. Her eyes widened as she realized what Nathaniel had done. "You're selling your properties, your company shares? Nathaniel, this is insane." "No, Emily," he replied softly. "What's insane is letting this place close down. These kids need you. The world needs you." Emily's heart pounded. She wanted to believe in his sincerity, but the magnitude of his sacrifice left her reeling. "I can't let you do this." "You don't have a choice," Nathaniel said, with a small, rueful smile. "The papers are already filed. The center is safe." Over the next few days, Emily struggled with conflicting emotions. She was overwhelmed by Nathaniel's sacrifice, yet part of her still hesitated to fully trust him. What if this was another calculated move? What if she let her guard down again, only to be hurt? Margaret, her close friend and co-worker at the nonprofit, offered her perspective. "Emily, people don't just change overnight. But Nathaniel, he's been proving himself every day. Maybe it's time to let him in." Emily sighed, gazing at the bustling education center. The children laughed and played, blissfully unaware of the storm that had nearly taken their safe haven. Deep down, she knew Margaret was right. One evening, Emily invited Nathaniel to a community dinner hosted by the nonprofit. It was a humble affair. Plastic tables lined with homemade dishes, children running around with sticky hands and bright smiles. Nathaniel, dressed down in a simple shirt and jeans, blended into the crowd surprisingly well. As the night wore on, Emily took the stage to address the attendees. "Tonight, we're celebrating resilience. This center has faced many challenges, but we're still here because of people who believe in its mission." She paused, her gaze locking on Nathaniel. "And some of those people have made incredible sacrifices to ensure its survival. Nathaniel, we owe you more than words can express." The crowd applauded, and Nathaniel's face flushed with humility. For the first time in years, he felt genuinely appreciated, not for his wealth, but for his actions. After the dinner, Emily and Nathaniel walked through the quiet streets of the neighborhood. The moonlight cast a soft glow on their surroundings, and the distant hum of the city filled the silence. "Thank you for everything," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. Nathaniel stopped, turning to face her. "I meant what I said, Emily. I'm not doing this for recognition or redemption. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do." Emily searched his eyes, finding only sincerity. Slowly, she reached for his hand. "I believe you." Just as their relationship seemed to solidify, a new complication arose. Nathaniel's sacrifice had left him vulnerable to attacks from his competitors. Liam, ever the opportunist, capitalized on the situation by spreading rumors about Nathaniel's motives and financial instability. At the same time, the predatory investor filed a countersuit, accusing Nathaniel of fraudulent dealings to secure the nonprofit's property. The media caught wind of the controversy, and reporters began hounding Emily for statements. "Why is Nathaniel Cross so invested in your nonprofit?" one journalist asked during a press conference. "Is this about philanthropy, or is there a deeper agenda?" Emily clenched her fists, fighting to keep her composure. "Nathaniel's actions speak for themselves," she said firmly. "He's done more for this community than most people ever will." The mounting pressure began to take its toll. Nathaniel received anonymous threats, warning him to back off the case, and Emily faced backlash from skeptics questioning her association with him. One night, Nathaniel's penthouse was vandalized. The word fraud spray-painted across the floor-to-ceiling windows. He called Emily immediately, his voice strained. "They're trying to scare us," he said. "But I won't back down." Emily's resolve hardened. "Neither will I." Just when it seemed like they were gaining the upper hand, a shocking discovery turned everything on its head. Nathaniel's legal team uncovered a hidden clause in the original contract with the predatory investor, a clause that implicated Liam as a silent partner in the deal. Nathaniel stared at the evidence, his hands trembling. "He's been orchestrating this from the start," he muttered. Emily leaned over his shoulder, her expression darkening. "Then, it's time we end this. For good." The tension between Nathaniel and Emily had started to dissipate, though the shadows of their past lingered. Nathaniel continued his tireless efforts, dedicating his time and remaining resources to expanding the nonprofit's reach. He attended every community event, worked closely with Emily's team, and offered his expertise without overstepping boundaries. One afternoon, as Nathaniel assisted with a book drive for underprivileged children, Emily approached him with a warm smile. "You're really getting the hang of this, aren't you?" she teased, watching as he awkwardly stacked books onto a shelf, too small to hold them. Nathaniel chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow. "Well, I wouldn't say I'm a natural, but I'm trying." The sincerity in his voice touched Emily. For the first time, she began to see him not as the arrogant billionaire she had once distrusted, but as someone who had transformed through his actions. The walls around her heart began to crumble, albeit slowly. Nathaniel decided it was time to go public with his support for the nonprofit. Emily, though initially hesitant, agreed to a joint press conference, believing it could bring much-needed attention to their cause. The event was held in a modest community center, with local families and reporters filling the room. Nathaniel stood at the podium, his usual confidence tempered with humility. "When I first encountered this organization, I saw it as a charity in need of support," he began, his voice steady. "But what I've learned is that this isn't just a charity. It's a lifeline. It's a beacon of hope for those who feel forgotten." The crowd murmured in approval, and Emily watched from the sidelines, her heart swelling with pride. "And as someone who once prioritized profits over people, I'm here to say that we can all change. We can all do better. And I'm starting with myself." Applause erupted. But the moment was bittersweet. While many welcomed Nathaniel's transformation, others questioned his motives. Skeptical reporters barraged him with questions, pressing him about his financial troubles and his association with Liam Warner. Nathaniel handled the scrutiny with grace, deflecting accusations and redirecting the focus to the nonprofit's mission. But as the press conference ended, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that their challenges were far from over. Liam, furious over Nathaniel's public success, launched a campaign to discredit him. He leaked confidential information about Nathaniel's financial sacrifices, framing them as desperate attempts to salvage his reputation. The media frenzy that followed was relentless, casting doubt on Nathaniel's intentions and threatening the nonprofit's credibility. Emily confronted Nathaniel after the story broke. "Why didn't you tell me this could happen?" she demanded, her voice tinged with frustration. "I didn't think it would matter," Nathaniel admitted, his shoulders slumping. "I thought, if I focused on the work, on making a difference, people would see the truth." Emily sighed, her anger softening. "You should have trusted me. We're in this together, Nathaniel." Her words reignited Nathaniel's resolve. He realized that to truly overcome Liam's schemes, they needed to act as a united front. With Emily's support, Nathaniel devised a plan to expose Liam's corruption. They enlisted the help of investigative journalist Claire Morrison, a tenacious reporter known for uncovering high-profile scandals. Claire delved into Liam's financial records, uncovering a web of illegal deals and fraudulent activities. Among the evidence was the hidden clause in the contract that tied Liam to the predatory investor, targeting Emily's nonprofit. "This is the smoking gun," Claire declared, showing Nathaniel and Emily the documents. "With this, we can not only clear your name, but also take Liam down." The revelation brought a renewed sense of hope, but it also heightened the stakes. Liam, aware of their investigation, began to retaliate with threats and intimidation tactics. One evening, after a particularly stressful day, Emily and Nathaniel found themselves alone in the quiet of her office. Emily sat on the floor, surrounded by paperwork, while Nathaniel leaned against the desk, his tie loosened and his expression weary. "Do you ever wonder if it's all worth it?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "All the time," Nathaniel admitted. "But then, I think about what you've accomplished, what this nonprofit means to so many people. That's what keeps me going." Emily looked up at him, her eyes glistening. "You've changed, Nathaniel. I see it now. But change doesn't erase the past." "I know," he said softly, "but I'm not asking for forgiveness anymore. I'm asking for a chance to earn it." The final confrontation with Liam came during a high-profile charity gala, a stark contrast to the one where the wager had begun. This time, Nathaniel and Emily were the honored guests, celebrated for their work with the nonprofit. Liam, uninvited but undeterred, crashed the event, intent on causing a scene. As he approached the stage, Nathaniel intercepted him, their confrontation drawing the attention of the crowd. "You think you've won?" Liam sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "You're still the same pathetic man you've always been, trying to buy redemption." Nathaniel stood his ground, his voice calm but firm. "I'm not here to win, Liam. I'm here to make a difference, something you'll never understand." In a dramatic turn, Claire stepped forward with the incriminating evidence against Liam. Security escorted him out, and the crowd erupted in applause. The victory was bittersweet. Nathaniel and Emily knew the road ahead would still be challenging, but they faced it together, their bond stronger than ever. At the end of the night, as they stood on the rooftop overlooking the city, Emily turned to Nathaniel. "You've earned more than forgiveness," she said. "You've earned my trust." Nathaniel smiled, his heart lighter than it had been in years. "And I promise, I'll never take that for granted." As the city skyline glittered in the distance, Nathaniel's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "This isn't over." The ominous text served as a reminder that while Liam was defeated, new challenges awaited. The fallout from the gala confrontation left the media buzzing. The exposure of Liam's corruption sent shockwaves through Manhattan's elite circles, effectively dismantling his influence. Yet, Nathaniel knew this victory was not the end. Liam had operated in shadows for years, and his web of deceit extended far beyond what they had uncovered. Nathaniel's resolve deepened. He spent the following weeks working tirelessly with investigative teams, determined to ensure Liam's downfall was absolute. Every deal Liam had struck, every illegal transaction, was scrutinized and brought to light. With Claire Morrison's relentless reporting, public opinion turned definitively against Liam, cementing his infamy as a symbol of greed and exploitation. Meanwhile, Emily watched Nathaniel with admiration. His unwavering commitment, even in the face of constant scrutiny, solidified her belief that his transformation was genuine. For the first time, she allowed herself to envision a future where they could work side by side, without the shadows of their past looming over them. Emily found herself reflecting on her journey. The betrayal she had felt after discovering the wager had scarred her. But Nathaniel's actions since then had begun to heal those wounds. She saw how his efforts had not only uplifted her nonprofit, but also inspired others in the community. One day, while organizing a workshop for underprivileged children, Emily overheard a conversation between two young volunteers. They spoke with enthusiasm about Nathaniel's recent contributions, marveling at how someone of his stature was so invested in their cause. "It's like he really cares," one of them said. "You don't see that kind of dedication every day." Emily's heart swelled with a mix of pride and hope. She realized that Nathaniel's transformation was not just a facade. It was a testament to his desire to be better. Her walls began to crumble further, replaced by a cautious but growing trust. Despite his public disgrace, Liam was not one to back down easily. He used his remaining resources to launch a smear campaign against Nathaniel, spreading false allegations about his intentions and dredging up past controversies. The attacks were relentless, designed to undermine Nathaniel's credibility and erode the progress he had made. Nathaniel, however, was prepared. With Claire's help, he had anticipated Liam's moves and had built a solid defense. As the media frenzy grew, Nathaniel and Emily held a joint press conference to address the allegations. Standing together at the podium, they exuded a united front. Nathaniel spoke with calm confidence, countering each accusation with evidence and transparency. Emily, for her part, delivered a heartfelt speech about the importance of forgiveness and the power of change. "The man you see today is not the man I met months ago," she said. "He has proven time and again that actions speak louder than words, and his actions have uplifted not just me, but countless others in our community." The press conference was a resounding success. Public opinion shifted once again, this time firmly in Nathaniel's favor. Liam's attempts to tarnish his reputation had only highlighted Nathaniel's resilience and integrity. With Liam's influence finally eradicated, Nathaniel turned his attention fully to the future. He worked closely with Emily to expand the nonprofit's reach, establishing new programs and partnerships to support underprivileged communities. Their collaboration was seamless, built on mutual respect and a shared vision. One of their most ambitious projects was the launch of a scholarship fund for underprivileged students. Nathaniel poured his resources into the initiative, ensuring it would provide opportunities for generations to come. At the program's inaugural ceremony, Emily watched with pride as Nathaniel spoke to a crowd of young hopefuls. "This isn't just about financial aid," Nathaniel said. "It's about giving every child a chance to dream, to aspire, and to achieve. Because when we invest in our future, we all thrive." The applause that followed was deafening. Emily felt a surge of emotion, knowing that their combined efforts were making a tangible difference. As their work together deepened, Emily decided it was time to fully acknowledge Nathaniel's transformation. She invited him to her childhood home, a modest but warm house in a quiet neighborhood. It was a place she rarely shared with others, but she felt Nathaniel had earned the privilege. Over dinner, they shared stories about their pasts, their struggles, and their hopes for the future. For the first time, Emily opened up about the sacrifices she had made for her nonprofit, including the personal relationships she had lost along the way. Nathaniel listened intently, his respect for her growing with every word. When it was his turn, he spoke candidly about his upbringing, his mistakes, and his determination to forge a new path. By the end of the evening, Emily felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. She reached across the table and placed her hand over Nathaniel's. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." Nathaniel's eyes glistened with emotion. "No, Emily, thank you for believing in me, even when I didn't deserve it." The final confrontation with Liam had marked the end of an era, but it was the quiet moments that followed that truly solidified Nathaniel's transformation. He had not only broken free from the toxic chains of his past, but had also found a sense of purpose and belonging in his partnership with Emily. One evening, as they walked through the bustling streets of Manhattan, Emily stopped and turned to Nathaniel. "You've come a long way," she said with a smile, "but the work isn't over." Nathaniel grinned. "I wouldn't have it any other way." As they continued walking, the city lights shimmering around them, Emily felt a renewed sense of hope. Together, they had faced immense challenges, but they had emerged stronger, united by a shared vision of a better future. Just as Nathaniel and Emily began to settle into their newfound partnership, an anonymous letter arrived at the nonprofit's office. It was addressed to Nathaniel, and its contents sent a chill down his spine. "You may have won this battle, but the war is far from over." Nathaniel folded the letter and tucked it into his pocket, his jaw set with determination. He knew their journey was far from complete, but with Emily by his side, he was ready for whatever lay ahead. The aftermath of their triumph left Nathaniel and Emily grappling with a mix of exhaustion and determination. For weeks, the nonprofit office buzzed with activity. Volunteers worked tirelessly to organize new programs, while Emily and Nathaniel strategized on how to maximize the impact of their recent victories. The scholarship fund, named the Harper Cross Opportunity Initiative, became the centerpiece of their efforts. Its announcement sparked a surge of interest from donors, educators, and policymakers alike. Nathaniel's influence in the business world opened doors Emily had only dreamed of, while her unwavering dedication inspired trust and enthusiasm from the community. Their partnership deepened with each new milestone. Late nights in the office turned into moments of shared reflection, where they discussed everything from program logistics to their personal dreams. For Nathaniel, it was a revelation. This was the first time his wealth and influence felt truly meaningful. While their professional collaboration flourished, Nathaniel knew he couldn't fully move forward without addressing his past. His relationships with family and former colleagues were fractured, and his reputation as a ruthless billionaire still lingered in the public consciousness. One afternoon, he invited Emily to join him on a visit to his childhood home, a sprawling estate in the Hamptons that now stood eerily empty. As they walked through the echoing halls, Nathaniel shared stories of his upbringing, the cold indifference of his parents, the relentless pressure to succeed, and the loneliness that shaped him into the man he had become. Emily listened intently, her empathy evident in her soft gaze. "You've carried this weight for too long," she said gently. "It's time to let it go." Encouraged by her words, Nathaniel reached out to his estranged younger sister, Vivian. Their reunion was tentative, but heartfelt. Vivian, who had distanced herself from the family's toxic legacy years ago, expressed surprise and cautious pride at Nathaniel's transformation. "I never thought I'd see the day when you'd walk away from all of this," she said, gesturing to the opulent surroundings. "But I'm glad you did." The meeting marked a turning point for Nathaniel, solidifying his resolve to continue on his new path. Back in Manhattan, Nathaniel and Emily focused on scaling their initiatives. They launched a series of pilot programs in underprivileged neighborhoods, combining educational resources with mentorship opportunities. The results were immediate and promising. Attendance rates soared, and students began to thrive under the guidance of dedicated mentors. One particularly moving moment occurred during a community event in Brooklyn, where they met a young boy named Jamal. Bright and inquisitive, Jamal reminded Nathaniel of his own younger self, full of potential but weighed down by circumstance. After the event, Nathaniel pulled Emily aside. "We need to do more for kids like him," he said with urgency. "He deserves every chance to succeed." Emily nodded. "That's exactly why we're here." Inspired by Jamal's story, they expanded the scholarship fund to include mentorship programs and career development workshops. The initiative quickly gained traction, attracting media attention and support from prominent figures in the education sector. Despite their progress, challenges persisted. Bureaucratic red tape, funding shortfalls, and occasional public skepticism tested their resolve. Yet, Nathaniel and Emily faced each obstacle head-on, drawing strength from their shared commitment. One particularly tense moment arose when a corporate sponsor attempted to impose conditions on their funding, demanding branding rights and control over program content. Nathaniel, leveraging his business acumen, negotiated firmly but tactfully. "We're not for sale," he told the sponsor's representative. "If you truly believe in our mission, you'll support it without strings attached." The representative relented, and the funding came through without compromise. Emily watched the exchange with admiration, realizing just how much Nathaniel had grown. As the nonprofit's impact grew, so did the celebrations. They hosted a gala to commemorate the success of their first year, inviting students, mentors, and community leaders to share their stories. The event was a resounding success, filled with laughter, tears, and heartfelt gratitude. During his speech, Nathaniel reflected on his journey. "This isn't just about giving back," he said. "It's about creating a future where every child has the chance to dream, to aspire, and to achieve. I've learned that true success isn't measured by wealth. It's measured by the lives we touch." Emily, standing beside him, felt a swell of pride. The man who had once seen her as a mere wager was now her equal partner in creating lasting change. As their professional bond deepened, so did their personal relationship. Emily, initially cautious, found herself opening up to Nathaniel in ways she hadn't with anyone else. They spent quiet evenings together, sharing their hopes and fears, building a foundation of trust and mutual respect. Nathaniel, for his part, embraced vulnerability. He spoke candidly about his insecurities and his desire to leave a legacy that truly mattered. Emily's unwavering belief in him became a source of strength, propelling him forward even in moments of doubt. One evening, as they watched the city lights from Emily's modest apartment, Nathaniel turned to her with a rare softness in his eyes. "You've changed everything for me," he said. "Not just my perspective, but my entire life." Emily smiled, her heart full. "And you've shown me that even the most unlikely people can surprise us." As the year drew to a close, Nathaniel and Emily took stock of their achievements. The nonprofit had touched countless lives, and their partnership had become a beacon of hope for others. They knew their work was far from over, but they were ready for whatever lay ahead. In a quiet moment, Nathaniel presented Emily with a handwritten letter. "This isn't just a thank you," he said. "It's a promise, to you, to the kids, and to myself, that I'll never stop striving to be better." Emily read the letter, her eyes brimming with tears. "You've already kept that promise, Nathaniel, and I have no doubt you'll keep it for the rest of your life." As they prepared for their next big initiative, a phone call interrupted their planning. It was from a prominent senator who expressed interest in partnering with their nonprofit to advocate for nationwide educational reform. "This could change everything," Emily said, her excitement palpable. Nathaniel nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "Then let's make it happen." The gala marking the nonprofit's 5-year anniversary was an affair to remember. The venue, a beautifully restored community center, buzzed with energy as guests arrived. Unlike the opulent galas Nathaniel once attended, this event brimmed with authenticity. Volunteers mingled with donors, and the children whose lives had been transformed took center stage. Nathaniel stood near the entrance, greeting guests alongside Emily. Both of them had changed profoundly over the years, and their growth was evident in the way they carried themselves. Nathaniel's once cynical demeanor had softened, replaced by a quiet confidence rooted in purpose. Emily, ever the guiding light, radiated strength and compassion. As the evening progressed, the highlight of the event came, a montage showcasing the nonprofit's journey. Clips of children thriving in school, teachers sharing stories of inspiration, and families expressing gratitude filled the screen. The room erupted into applause as the final slide appeared, empowering futures together. After the montage, a young woman stepped onto the stage. It was Jamal's older sister, Aliyah, now a college graduate, pursuing a degree in social work. She shared her story of how the nonprofit's scholarships had enabled her family to break free from the cycle of poverty. None of this would have been possible without the vision of Nathaniel Cross and Emily Harper. Aliyah said, her voice trembling with emotion, "They didn't just change lives, they changed communities." The audience rose to their feet in a standing ovation. Emily turned to Nathaniel, her eyes glistening. "This is what it's all about," she whispered. Nathaniel nodded, his heart full. For the first time in his life, he felt truly fulfilled, not by wealth, but by the knowledge that he had made a tangible difference. As the gala wound down, Nathaniel and Emily slipped away to a quieter corner of the center. They watched as families mingled, children laughed, and volunteers shared stories of their experiences. Nathaniel broke the silence. "I never imagined my life would look like this." Emily smiled. "It's a good look on you." He laughed softly. "It's all because of you, you know. You showed me what really matters." Emily placed a hand on his arm. "You did the work, Nathaniel. I just reminded you of what you were capable of." Their conversation turned reflective as they discussed the challenges they had faced, the betrayals, the sacrifices, and the moments of doubt. Yet through it all, they had emerged stronger, their bond unshakable. The following week, Emily and Nathaniel announced the launch of a new initiative under the nonprofit's umbrella, the Next Generation Fellowship. Designed to empower young leaders from underserved communities, The fellowship would provide mentorship, funding, and resources for aspiring changemakers. The announcement garnered widespread media attention. Journalists praised the initiative as a groundbreaking approach to addressing systemic inequities. Nathaniel, once vilified as a cutthroat billionaire, now found himself lauded as a visionary philanthropist. Emily, ever modest, deflected the attention. "This isn't about us," she told reporters. "It's about the kids and their futures." One of the first fellowship recipients was Jamal, now a high school senior with dreams of becoming a teacher. During the award ceremony, he approached Nathaniel with a shy smile. "Thank you for believing in me," he said. Nathaniel crouched down to meet Jamal's gaze. "You've always had the potential, Jamal. We're just here to help you unlock it." As their professional accomplishments grew, so did their personal lives. Nathaniel and Emily found joy in the simplest moments, sharing coffee in the mornings, taking long walks through the park, and supporting each other's dreams. One evening, while walking along the river, Nathaniel paused. "Emily," he began, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "I've been thinking about the future." Our future. Emily tilted her head, a playful smile on her lips. "What about it?" "I want to spend it with you," he said, pulling out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple but elegant ring. "Will you marry me?" Tears filled Emily's eyes as she nodded. "Yes, Nathaniel. 1,000 times. Yes." Their engagement was a quiet affair, celebrated with close friends and family. For them, the commitment symbolized not just love, but a shared purpose and a promise to continue building a better world together. The story came full circle as Nathaniel and Emily attended the opening of a new community center funded by their nonprofit. The center, named Harper Cross Haven, was a safe space for children to learn, grow, and dream. During the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Emily addressed the crowd. "This isn't just a building. It's a symbol of what's possible when we come together for a common purpose. Every child deserves a chance to thrive. And today, we take one step closer to making that a reality." Nathaniel's turn to speak came next. His voice, once sharp and commanding, was now steady and heartfelt. "I've spent much of my life chasing things that didn't matter. But standing here today, I know I've found my true calling. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning." As the sun set on the community center's grand opening, Nathaniel and Emily stood together, watching children play in the courtyard. The laughter and joy around them were a testament to the impact they had made. Nathaniel turned to Emily, his expression one of quiet awe. "We did it." Emily smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. "No, Nathaniel, we're just getting started." The camera panned out, capturing the vibrant scene, a testament to hope, resilience, and the transformative power of love and determination. In the end, it wasn't about the wager. It was about the journey, and the hearts forever changed along the way. As the story of Nathaniel and Emily comes to a close, we're left with a powerful reminder. Redemption, love, and purpose can transform even the most unexpected lives. But what about you? What part of their journey resonated with you the most? Was it Nathaniel's transformation, Emily's unshakable dedication, or the lives they changed together? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. And if you're craving more stories that move your heart and challenge your mind, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. There's so much more to come. Stories of hope, resilience, and the extraordinary ways people come together to make a difference. Let's continue this journey together. See you in the next story.